Welcome to the Principal Podcast, where we talk about how the best professional services firms grow. Whether you're looking to scale your firm or learn from the stories of founders and leaders who've done it, you're in the right place. Join us as we interview the best leaders in professional services. Let's get on with the show. Regan, welcome to the Principal Podcast. Happy to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Likewise. Let's jump straight into it. What got you into this whole thing, Regan? What's the origin story of you getting into the lovely consulting space?
That is $1 million question and a good one. I never thought this would be my life. This was not scripted. It's been a bit of a choose your own adventure, but I, of all places, grew up in a really small town in Colorado. The smallest of towns is Ouray. It's about 600 people. They call it the Switzerland of America, and it's in this kind of deep valley. It's amazing because you're really connected with nature, but obviously there's not a lot that goes on there. Right now it's an ice climbing mecca. They have found a way to kind of pipe in the winter water through these pipes that creates these world-class ice climbing venues. So it's literally one of the best ice climbing places in the world, I believe. But then we moved to the big city of Durango, Colorado, which maybe at the time had 8,000 people, but it felt large compared to Ouray. And my mom was a school teacher and my dad was a carpenter. And we didn't grow up with lots of money, but we had everything we wanted. And our version of a good time was camping, road trips, traveling. Because my mom was a school teacher, we got to travel overseas quite a bit because we had summer breaks and winter breaks. And I finished high school in Australia, and my brother lived in Spain for a few years. And so we've kind of been global travelers and nomads through my upbringing. And then in my 20s, my brother, myself, and a bunch of our friends got really into whitewater kayaking. And that kind of blossomed into a kind of us being professional whitewater kayakers. We were sponsored. We would compete in these freestyle events. The company we were sponsored through was based out of Germany, but we would compete. If you think about a river and water flowing over a rock or a kind of a feature, it creates a wave or a hole behind it. And we would go into those waves and holes and do as many tricks as we could. And you get judged on style and technicality and those things. And they have these whitewater freestyle events, in the Colorado Rockies, in the Sierras, in New Zealand, in Europe, on the East Coast. But those were the competitions. And in between those competitions, there was a lot of downtime, right? You'd have one in Colorado and another one in California. And so we would drive a van with all of our gear from one place to another. And in between those sessions, we took photos and made videos. And the goal in kayaking is to kind of run the hardest rapid and find the biggest waterfall and take photos of yourselves kind of doing it. So that's how we afforded our lifestyle. But during that time, if I was a 6 or a 7 at a raw talent, the introduction of coaching, starting to work with people to videotape and looking at health and wellness and the gym and things like that. We started to compete as an 8 or a 9. I was never a 10. There was always people better than I was. But the introduction of coaching as an athlete was immensely beneficial. And I had grown up playing competitive soccer my whole life. I thought that was the thing I was committed to. But then fast forward to my late 20s, I came out to California, which is where my dad grew up in San Francisco. And I had a good friend finishing his PhD in organizational psychology. And I didn't even know that was a thing. And all of a sudden I was exposed to this whole new world that really looked at how people organize in hospitals and schools and for-profits and nonprofits and startups and things. And I just fell in love with it. I couldn't believe that this was actually something that people could do and get paid to do. So I dove headfirst into grad school. I planned on getting a PhD. I had received my master's already, and then I got recruited to an executive coaching firm in San Francisco. And the founder of that company was also an ex-athlete. So my whole interview was about overcoming adversity and training and, having grit and tenacity. And she's like, "You're hired. You'll figure out this other stuff as we go." And I was really lucky and blessed. Her name is Sue Bethanis in Mariposa Leadership, but she threw me in the deep end, and I got to coach executives at LinkedIn and eBay and PayPal and Facebook and Google, and it was amazing. I had a lot of imposter syndrome at that time, but cut my teeth and learned an immense amount in a short amount of time. And then in my blissful ignorance, I started my own consulting company. This is about 20 years ago at this point. I was doing a lot of one-on-one executive coaching, but I went to school for kind of the systems. I wanted to change kind of, I wanted to build high-performing teams, and I wanted to work with cultures in the system at large. And I was doing a lot of the one-on-one exec stuff, and started a consulting company called Irontree Consulting, and have kind of been doing that ever since. But that merged kind of the systems view with the one-on-one view, and then over time kind of put the team view in there. And 15 years ago, I was coaching the COO at Zynga, which is a gaming company. And he and I hit it off, and he was always a kind of a big company insider. He's very operational. He's been a CEO and a COO, but I was his executive coach. And as I mentioned, we hit it off, and I brought him in on a couple projects I was doing because they were kind of heavy ops and operational excellence. And we decided after kind of doing that for about a year that we wanted to start a company together. So 15 years ago, we started a company called Better, Faster, Further that kind of marries heavy operational efficiency and goal setting and things with kind of the people, culture, system stuff. And my short analogy, and then I'll pause for you, is just, my co-founder, Louis, if you wanted to summit Everest, he would get you there. You'll plant the flag. There may be dead bodies laying around, but you're going to summit. And my whole premise was like, let's summit and make sure our team's intact. So that combination and that marriage of kind of people and processes has been our secret sauce ever since.
A mix of internationality and sports. I think I'm going to love this. So all this, Regan, leading to what? What is it that you're helping people achieve today?
It's one of the hardest questions to answer, and it's been consistent the entire time. But at the end of the day, what we do is we help leaders become better leaders. We help build high-performing teams, and we help teams and organizations scale. And that means different things to different people at different times. But we're agnostic with who we work with in regards to industry and size. We work with a lot of early stage startups. We work with what we call mid-tier companies, which are like, grown-up startups, if you will, but private. And we work with publicly traded companies. And at the end of the day, we do our kind of core interventions are really around one-on-one executive coaching. We do a lot of like training and workshops. We do a lot of strategic offsites and facilitation. And we do a lot of kind of heavy consultative work. Well, we'll go into an organization and do like a kind of a deep dive into their operations and make recommendations from there. And we've started some really unique programs out of that. But at the end of the day, we're kind of like business therapists, if you will. And more often than not, we kind of do it quietly. We're a little bit more like a SEAL Team 6 than we are, an Army brigade. We're come in the back door oftentimes with not a lot of fanfare and fix things that are broken and or help people that are kind of high performers that are looking for that edge.
That was pretty well answered for a question very hard to answer. Who do you do that for though, Regan? Because I mean, obviously you're describing this and I'm like, yeah, that's basically what 99.9% of the companies out there need. But again, companies love to also see that people they hire help for have already helped people exactly like them, or at least close to them. Yeah. So for you guys at BFF, who is it that you help specifically?
That's a great question. Originally, my co-founder Louis had a pretty strong network. He used to work for Larry Ellison at Oracle. He worked with directly for Eric Schmidt, who used to be the CEO of Google. At other companies like NetApp. He worked directly for Mark Pincus, who was the CEO for Zynga, et cetera. And I was always kind of an outsider, but I had a very different network of folks through my work at LinkedIn and eBay and PayPal and all that stuff. So I've worked with, literally hundreds and hundreds of leaders and probably almost as many companies themselves. The point I'm trying to get to is, the people that we support tend to be the honor roll students of the work world. they are like senior managers or above typically, right? We tend to operate in the VP, SVP, C-suite area. However, we do spend a lot of time and care a lot about kind of that frontline manager and emerging leader profile. But that's kind of typically the audience. And then, as I mentioned, our work varies greatly because the work and the interventions we provide at a 150 person startup feel quite different than they do at a 1,000 person company, which feels very different at a $25,000 or head person company. However, the dirty secret about kind of consulting and coaching is thematically 60 to 70% of the themes that we run into are always the same. Vision, communication, conflict, accountability, right? Ownership, etc. But that remaining 30 or 40% is 100% custom to that particular company at that moment, right? The companies you've worked for are super unique to other companies, but they're filled with humans, and humans require and run into very consistent themes when it comes to getting stuff done.
Who makes the decision of hiring you guys? Who is it that BFF needs to get into the room with to say, hey, we need help here?
Yeah. It varies, but I'll talk. I'll be as specific as I can because those are different audiences. Typically, if we're doing a coaching engagement, there is a sponsor. There's either an executive or an HR person who internally has pre-identified a need or an opportunity to coach somebody. More often than not, we coach people who are high performers who just need an edge and or have been promoted to another layer, and we're looking to help them transition. We don't often work with kind of the broken soldiers, although it does happen, but we tend to work with the high performers. So we're trying to take a rough cut diamond and polish it. And usually those people want to get better, are hungry, looking for feedback, like they're engaged in part of the process. But the buyer of that tends to be the sponsor through a C-suite executive or an HR professional or something like that. When we do our offsites and kind of team facilitation, that's driven more by the executive themselves. They are having a really important, 10 or 12 person strategic offsite. It's multi-day. It's in a remote location. It costs a lot of money. People fly in from all over the world for these things. And so the buyer is usually the executive there. And then when we're doing kind of our more consultative interventions in an organization, there's usually a pretty heavy vetting process. Meaning like the CEO is saying, we need to go through a pretty significant transition from point A to point B. We realize we can't do it ourselves. They'll go vet 2 or 3 different companies. We'll go through a couple rounds of kind of vetting interviews, with the sponsor, and then ultimately with like the CEO or whoever that executive is. And that's a pretty thorough vetting process. You have to jump through some big, burning hoops of fire. But when you do, they tend to stay sticky for a long time. So it's worth doing.
I suspect that the people that make the decision, so the sponsors versus the one who are actually the leaders versus potentially the team that you actually end up helping, are all different entities, stakeholders. What has worked for you guys to get the attention of the decision maker?
Yep.
Build a relationship with the sponsor who's ultimately going to push for you guys. Make the team that you're actually going to help interested in what you do and engaged. I'm not talking about sales just yet. I'm really talking about marketing and branding.
Yeah.
What has worked for you guys to get into the rooms, keeping in mind all those different stakeholders and kind of entities you need the buy-in of?
Yeah, it's again another good question. The best marketing you can do is to do kick-ass work with the clients you work with, right? And they become your net promoters, right? And so a majority of the work we get is not us outwardly marketing and casting a broad net and hoping to catch something. We do that. It's word of mouth. So a majority of our kind of inbound is coming from, we love it when somebody that we worked with at company A decides to move to company B because it's like a whole new environment. They often bring us with them. Like, that's awesome, right? But, the other thing we do is once we work with a leader in an executive coaching capacity or at an offsite, because we do such good work, they want us to do more work. So you kind of go viral within these things. So again, it's not a heavy sales job. We're really good at selling, if you will, but it's an informal sell, not an overt sell. But also through that, because you're right, you have like the sponsoring stakeholder, you have the leader themselves that's receiving the services, and then you have kind of all the ancillary beneficiaries of that effort. And it takes a lot of effort to please all those people. It feels like you serve many masters, but we pride ourselves in making really good coaching matches. We pride ourselves on being, it sounds cheesy, but like, we're truth tellers. We're oftentimes some of the only people that will go into an organization and tell them that their baby is ugly. And like that, people love. They in the moment it hurts, but they're like, oh my God, I thought my baby was ugly, but you're actually telling me it is. And like, help me fix this, And so we because we don't work for them. I mean, there are paying, customer and stuff, but they want us there. We have the luxury of being able to be truth tellers. And I think most leaders don't get told the truth very often, especially if you're a CEO. People pander, they don't want to hurt feelings. And so they get kind of, soft served reality, and the feedback rarely gets there. I can't tell you how oftentimes we'll bring hard news to somebody and they will be so thankful for it.
I love this. So I'm going to push a bit here, Regan, because I know that you have the right answers to those questions. So that's the positioning. Obviously, I love in order to get results, you need to do kick-ass work. I'm actually pleased that we're using these terms because that's the one I often use myself. What has worked for you guys to get the attention of those people in the first place? So you have the introduction, the guy that you help the team of, that moves company, that brings you with him, that's chef's kiss. Obviously, that's the perfect scenario. But beyond that, what have you guys done to build that awareness, build that credibility out there, and get people interested into what you guys do?
As we've continued, so I've been doing this for about 20 years and 15 years through Better, Faster, Further. So not only has our team grown, but the perception of our firm has grown as well. Mm-hmm. So every coach we work with, every trainer we have, every consultant and strategic advisor that we employ, I consider nodes out in the ecosystem, right? So there is frameworks and kind of talk tracks that we empower those people. You kind of indoctrinate them over time. But as far as kind of the formal, we'll say marketing efforts, we do a podcast, which I thoroughly enjoy. It's typically guest driven. We'll invite guests just like this onto a podcast. Sometimes it's clients, but we've interviewed military folks. We've interviewed authors, the potpourri of people. But we leverage that as opportunities for thought leadership. And we kind of leverage that as like kind of being taking a stance on how we believe leaders and teams and organizations should think and operate. We do articles, we write articles and have been for quite some time. And then, obviously we have like the website modality and things like that. I think I could count on my hands the amount of clients that we've gotten through our website. And it's not because it's not good or informative, but our buyer is not buying an off-the-shelf solution, right? Our buyer is in a high trust, relationship required buying seat, and they're buying trust, they're buying confidentiality, and they're buying ROI. They want to know that the money they spend and the time they invest is going to drive the outcomes that they want. And so these are all about relationships. It's about trust. It's about having real discussions with real people. I think our marketing efforts are really kind of casting the net to spark the opportunity for us to get in front of those people and have a dialogue.
I need to piggyback on what you just said here, Regan, which is excellent, by the way. I love. I need to piggyback on the website aspect of things. I get it. We want our website to look good. it feels right. And, if people find out about you and they want to learn more, having a good looking website is a plus. But how many professional service firms do I see putting so much effort into optimizing the website, making it look better, iterating every other month? And when asked, okay, how many people visit your website each and every month? They're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is the typical example of putting tons of effort into something that doesn't matter that much. What matters is visibility in front of the right people, building trust, building authority, and having a way to trigger conversations with the right people. And I mean, again, chef's kiss masterclass on what you just said around trust and authority, because when you're about to sell a high 5, 6, 7 figures project, this is what matters, not having a nice font of your website on your website.
Totally agree.
Talk to me about how you move the needle, how you go from this awareness, this trust, this authority, this reputation to a conversation, a sales conversation, an SOW, a letter of engagement. We rock and roll.
Yeah, it's an art and a science. So because we've been doing this for quite some time, we have built a track record of success, and with that, a long line of happy customers, clients that are willing to serve as references and testimonials. And I can tell you how good I am all day long, and at times it's awkward and weird, but you got to do it. But I'll tell you what, that's like a 3 out of 10. If somebody else that partnered with me tells you how good I am, that's like a home run. Like, I used them. This is what they did. This is what this is where they could have improved. Like, that is worth its weight in gold. So those references, those testimonials, I was thinking about it today in prep for this I was taking my dog for a walk, and I genuinely, being honest, I tried hard. I can think of one client, maybe 1.5, that wouldn't give a reference for us, positively, just because and it's a long story, but it just didn't go well. 97.5% of the people we work with would be happy and offer to talk to new clients. And we actually take advantage of that. It's a good opportunity for us to stay sticky with those people. But to get specific about your question, there's a very nuanced moment that when you kind of have high EQ and you understand how people make decisions, we like to think that people make decisions based on data. And I would argue sometimes they do, right? Like you can make data informed decisions, but 99% of us are emotionally driven decision makers. And if you can tap in to people's motivations, and if you can, if you want to motivate somebody, you need to understand their pain points, and you need to understand their desired outcomes, their desired future state. And we talk to both. We'll highlight the pain they're experiencing right now, or the pain they may be experiencing soon if they don't make the move. And we'll also paint the picture for greener pastures. Like, hey, if you have a toothache, you can ignore it for a little while. But if that toothache gets worse and worse, finally you're like, I got to go to the dentist, right? And so that's that discomfort. That's kind of the stick. But the carrot is even better, which is like, look, there is a world that exists across this scary chasm that looks and sounds and feels like all the things that you want. It's going to take hard work, but if you break those things down into bite-sized doses, there is a way to get there, and you start to kind of play into those motivations. You can move mountains together with these clients. And I think the other thing that we do that's, not unique in practice, but unique in how we pitch, is we're experts in what we do. Like, we're freaking really good, but your business better than I'll ever know it. I'm not going to come in and tell you how to run your business. Like, that just doesn't make sense, right? But if you bring your expertise and we bring our expertise, and we can get those gears to spin at the same time in the same way, that's a really powerful combination. So it kind of disarms and kind of reduces the threat of having a third party outsider come in. And man, it's crazy. They give us the keys to the castle. They're like, interview anybody you want, go into the bowels of the engine room and tinker down there and see what you find. And we come back up, and that's when we tell them the truth. And there are, even if the truth is a hard pill to swallow, They really, really appreciate it.
Like your baby is ugly?
Like this engine is about to fall apart if you don't do some significant overhauls. Or, you know what, like 8 out of the 10 things that you're concerned about, they're non-issues. But these one or two things, if you really hit it, you're gonna ride off into the sunset. And not everything is broken. A lot of the companies we work with are amazing. They're kicking butt. But the other truth is the darlings of Wall Street are really messy under the hood. Mm-hmm. Every company has a underbelly that is not very pretty. I don't care who they are, and they have warts, and they're it's crazy. So when you get in there, everything's messy, and some people are more willing to allow you to see those that underbelly. But yeah, it's a fascinating world. It's a target-rich environment, I'll say. Every organization that I can think of can probably operate better than they currently are. Some just operate better than others,
Target-rich environments. It's funny. I've recently discovered this expression with a good friend of mine since I live in the US. One of the things I want to piggyback on here again, Regan, because this is just so good, right, is anybody can claim anything on the internet nowadays. And this is even more true with the advent of AI. Everybody is regurgitating experts' advice on LinkedIn directly from ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, your favorite LLM, whatever. The client testimonials, the video case study interviews, any ways you can find to not have you say we are the best, but have your client say, not even you're the best, right? But simply like, hey, this is where we were. This is why we chose to go with BFF or whatever the name of your consulting firm is for you listening right now. This is what made me hesitate, so that you tackle an objection that you might get from future clients. Right. This is how the process went. This is where we are now. At no point you're saying, hey, we're the best, walk with us, and it's all pride and ego. It's just like, this is where we were, this is where we are now. And this is thanks to the work that we did with XYZ consulting firm. This is worth its weight in gold because you're no longer saying we're the best. You're having someone else say, this is what they did and this is where we are now. It's funny because we had this conversation earlier today in the mastermind with a lady who has amazing testimonials, but written. And she was asking whether she should do more videos. And I was like, here is the problem. I know that those are real testimonials, but for someone who doesn't know you, anybody can claim anything nowadays. And unfortunately, there are so many people putting fake testimonials on their website with Jonathan P. whatever or Michael X. And it's so hard to trust. We live in a trust recession world. So video, case study interviews, testimonials as live as possible are the best, in my opinion. All right, talk to me about retention, Regan. I mean, the fact of having clients who, when they move companies, they bring you with them. When you do work with them, they want to roll out your coaching and your consulting in other departments, in bigger teams. How do you optimize for retention beyond the obvious answer, which is do a kick-ass work? How do you guys do that at BFF?
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things to do as a consultant and coach. And I like what you said earlier, like through the coaching lens, anybody can print out a business card and start a website and say, I'm a coach. And I have a saying that there's never a bad time for good coaching, but there's never a good time for bad coaching. And there's a lot of bad coaches out there just because they don't have the certifications or they lack the business savvy or the expertise. And again, it's the Wild West out there. And so I would just say, same with consultants, but just like, really vet the person or people or firm that you're going to bring in and that repository of testimonials or references is just really key, and it's worth pushing on. In regards to kind of staying sticky with clients long term, one of the things that we've done, and it's a blessing and a curse, I think there's more blessing than curse in it, is the way I'm wired, I'm a bit of a generalist. I'm rarely the smartest guy in any of the rooms I'm in. We work with brilliant people who went to amazing schools, who have way higher IQs than I do, and I'm perfectly fine with that. However, I'm able to walk into a room and I can sense very quickly kind of the emotional thing, the vibe, like what's needed, what's not being said, who's like there's some negativity over here. And so my ability to kind of suss some of those things out is very nuanced. And because of that, I've become a generalist. And in as a default, I would argue much of our firm is kind of been built to be generalist. So like, when you're in grad school, they say, pick a niche and go deep and become an expert. And I think for a lot of people that works fine, but it just didn't resonate with me. And that's why when people say, what do you do? I have to take a big, deep breath, because it really depends. We do coaching, we do training, we do workshops, we do offsites, we do consulting work, but that's by design. And I'm getting to answer your question here is because of that, each of those is a flywheel depending on where you insert yourself into the BFF ecosystem. An example, we get phone calls on Monday next week. I'm doing an offsite for a client that I coached 10, 12 years ago at eBay. They're now bringing me in to do their leadership team offsite, right? And then we've had interventions. I've coached folks for him, his direct reports and stuff. But the point is like, if I've worked with you one-on-one, or if any of our coaches have, they typically say, oh, I have an offsite that's coming up. And then you do the offsite. Now you've met 6 or 7 of their leaders. And they're like, oh, I have 2 people that need coaching. I have an offsite coming up. So there's this virality that happens. And I wish there was a way to like heat map it. It would be so cool to see how one small entrance into an enterprise client and you can start to go viral. And then you break into different orgs, and now you're working kind of doing those things in parallel. But again, it comes back to the quality of the work. And then you have to have a team of coaches, because if they're the nodes for us out in the ecosystem, I can only coach so many people. They can only coach so many people. But if I've got 10 coaches coaching 10 people, that's 100 conversations about better, faster, further that should be happening 24/7, So that's kind of by design. The flip side to that is that we don't always control the kind of work that comes our way. Sometimes we wish we were only coaches, like just give me executive coaching, and we would, optimize around that, greatly, but it means we'd have to say no to all this stuff, but it would make our branding easier. It would make our sales kind of pitch easier, but because we wear all these different hats, but, the benefit is that we get lots of different work. The flip side is that we don't always control it. Tomorrow, my phone could ring and we'll get a 6-month consulting gig, and then we'll get offsites, and then we'll get needs for workshops. So I've kind of built the team in ways that have these, areas of expertise. We have trainers that love training and people that love to do offsites and facilitation.
I like your style, Regan.
I appreciate that.
Which is why I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball question at you now.
Bring it.
What is your number one challenge right now? What is the one nut that you guys are trying to crack that once you crack, you're going to take the whole thing to the next level? What would that be for you?
There's 2 things. I'll give you the internal perspective of like what we as a business and a firm are trying to crack. And then I'll give you kind of where we're headed, meaning like how we're trying to crack the universe outwardly. The inward one is how we scale ourselves. So we are a service business, and that service tends to be pretty white glove, pretty curated, pretty custom. None of that screams scalability, right? So it screams high touch, curated, bespoke, all of that. And I get that, but we need to figure out how to continue to have that flywheel become bigger and bigger without having to add just more and more humans into it. So we are big advocates and champions of leveraging AI tools internally to help us do that. And we are doing it. We use many, many tools internally to do that. And that kind of begs the question. So for us, it's scalability. And for me in particular, I love what I do. I could geek out on this for years, and I love it. However, I feel moving forward where my time and energy is best spent is not necessarily in the delivery of the services as much as kind of being the thought leader and the provocateur and the business development person. I love creating thought leadership and content and having conversations. One of my superpowers, I believe, is helping to get the train out of the station. I love getting people excited. I love getting that initial momentum. Once it's all about getting 10% more efficient, I kind of lose interest. And there's other people that are better. I do not think in Gantt charts and Excel sheets. That's just not my strength. And thank God I have people on my team that are good at that. But I need to scale myself, which means I need to get out of the way more. And I've been working on this for years, but we got to crack the code on how we continue to scale as a firm. The code we're trying to crack outwardly is there's this unique moment that we're all privy to right now, but it is very, very real, where you've got, I'll use AI as kind of the interface. You've got this moment in time where AI is coming in, and particularly with our big enterprise clients, there are mandates coming down from the top, and headcount reductions and efficiency and utilization and adoption metrics. Like, there is a big push for organizations to become AI native as quickly as possible. And that is compounding the pressure on the human workforce in extreme ways. And I think it will continue for the next 24, 48 months until the dust settles a little bit. We actually figure out how much ROI is going to come out of this enterprise level AI effort, but it's real. And the workforce, so I'm seeing a lot of time, energy, and money being invested in the AI technologies themselves. What I'm not seeing is the same level of investment in the human capacity to become change agents and adopters and learners to engage and adapt to the needs of the future with AI. And you get a lot of fear, you get a lot of overwhelm, and people are being pulled in a myriad of directions. Where we are playing right now more than ever is in that interface between the tried and true AI technology itself and where the humans interact with that. And an analogy that I'm using, I kind of stole it from somebody else, but it resonated with me, is AI is kind of like this piano. And if I walk up to that piano, I'm going to play horrible music because I don't play the piano, but I can play, beautiful music. If Ray Charles walks up to that same piano, completely different music. If Beethoven or Bach walk up to it, it's the same piano, it's the same AI, but what the human brings to that moment is totally unique and distinct. But the piano is getting all the attention, and what's not getting the attention is kind of the workforces in how they're integrating there. So I'm seeing HR teams and learning and development teams and leaders themselves crumbling under the weight of like the requirements and the overwhelm and the death by 1,000 paper cuts of their workforces. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And we're right in the middle of it. So like the work we do historically has kind of been fun. It's not always easy. It's hard work, but right now it's like hard work and it's draining because these people are hurting. The workforces are like, it's hard to be an employee in a big company right now. There's a lot of pressure. And I think, some companies are thriving and some startups are thriving and they're fun, great places to work, but those are a minority, not a majority.
Regan Bach, ladies and gentlemen. Regan, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
I am on LinkedIn. My name is Regan Bach, ReganBach. You can reach out to me, hit me up directly. And then our website, betterfasterfurther.com, is the great place to get a hold of us. And if you look on iTunes or Spotify, we also have a podcast just under Better, Faster, Further. And put my name in Google. I'm sure some of our articles and thought leadership stuff will come up as well.
Just in case, we will put all the links in the description. I can say one thing for sure, it's that you've gained at least one new connection on LinkedIn out of this interview, Regan. We are now connected. Thank you so much for coming on the Principal Podcast.
I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate your time and wish all your guests the best.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Principal Podcast. We hope you've learned valuable lessons and strategies to grow your firm and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.